Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 17, entitled Punishment and Reward of Kali. Text number 10 and 11 together. Yasya rashtre praja sarvas Trasyante sadva sadhubihi Tasya mattasya nashyanti Kirtirayur bhago gatihi Yesha ragnam paro dharmo Yartanam arti nigraha Atayenam vadishyami Bhutadruhama sattamam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. O chaste one, the king's good name, duration of life and good rebirth vanish when all kinds of living beings are terrified by miscreants in his kingdom. It is certainly the prime duty of the king to subdue first the sufferings of those who suffer. Therefore, I must kill this most wretched man because he is violent against other living beings. Purport. When there is some disturbance caused by wild animals in a village or town, the police or others take action to kill them. Similarly, it is the duty of the government to kill at once all bad social elements such as thieves, dacoits, and murderers. The same punishment is also due to animal killers because the animals of the state are also the praja. Praja means one who has taken birth in the state, and this includes both men and animals. Any living being who takes birth in a state has the primary right to live under the protection of the king. The jungle animals are also subject to the king, and they also have a right to live. So what to speak of domestic animals like the cows and bulls? Any living being, if it terrifies other living beings, is a most wretched subject, and the king should at once kill such a disturbing element. As the wild animal is killed when it creates disturbances, similarly, any man who unnecessarily kills or terrifies the jungle animals or other animals must be punished at once. By the law of the Supreme Lord, all living beings in whatever shape they may be are the sons of the Lord, and no one has any right to kill another animal unless it is so ordered by the courts of natural law. The tiger can kill a lower animal for his subsistence, but a man cannot kill an animal for his subsistence. That is the law of God, who has created the law that a living being subsists by eating another living being. Thus, the vegetarians are also living by eating other living beings. Therefore, the law is that one should live only by eating specific living beings as ordained by the law of God. The Ishopanishad directs that one should live by the direction of the Lord and not at one's sweet will. A man can subsist on varieties of grains, fruits and milk ordained by God, and there is no need of animal food save and except in particular cases. The illusioned king or executive head, even though sometimes advertised as a great philosopher and learned scholar, will allow slaughterhouses in the state without knowing that torturing poor animals clears the way to hell for such foolish kings or executive heads. The executive head must always be alert to the safety of the prajas, both man and animal, and inquire whether a particular living being is harassed at any place by another living being. The harassing living being must at once be caught and put to death, as shown by Maharaj Parikshit. The people's government or government by the people should not allow killing of innocent animals by the sweet will of foolish government men. They must know the courts of God as mentioned in the revealed scriptures. Maharaja Parikshit quotes here that according to the courts of God, the irresponsible king or state executive jeopardizes his good name, duration of life, power and strength, and ultimately his progressive march towards a better life and salvation after death. Such foolish men do not even believe in the existence of a next life. While commenting on this particular verse, we have in our presence the statement of a great modern politician who has recently died and left his will, which discloses his poor fund of knowledge of the courts of God mentioned by Maharaja Parikshit. The politician was so ignorant of the courts of God that he writes, open quotes, I do not believe in any such ceremonies, and to submit to them even as a matter of form would be hypocrisy and an attempt to delude ourselves and others. I have no religious sentiment in the matter. Close quote. Contrasting these statements of a great politician in the modern age with those of Maharaja Parikshit, we find a vast difference. Maharaja Parikshit was pious according to the scriptural codes, whereas the modern politician goes by his personal belief and sentiments. Any great man of this material world is after all a conditioned soul. He is bound by his hands and feet by the ropes of material nature, and still the foolish conditioned soul thinks of himself as free to act by his whimsical statements. The conclusion is that people in the time of Maharaj Parikshit were happy and the animals were given proper protection because the executive head was not whimsical or ignorant of God's law. Foolish, faithless creatures try to avoid the existence of the Lord and proclaim themselves secular at the cost of valuable human life. The human life is especially meant for knowing the signs of God, but foolish creatures, especially in this age of Kali, instead of knowing God scientifically, make propaganda against religious belief as well as the existence of God, even though they are always bound by the laws of God, by the symptoms of birth, death, old age and disease. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So in this chapter, we are discussing the scenario wherein Maharaja Parikshit, while touring his kingdom, so this is the point at where Lord Krishna and all the other, they had disappeared, Arjuna, they had all disappeared from this material world, and that is where the Kali's influence started. And while Maharaja Parikshit was touring his kingdom, he saw that the personality of Kali was beating the bull and the cow, the personification of religion. So at this time, Maharaja Parikshit stops Kali, and then he is inquiring from the cow. So that is where the translation it says, O chaste one. So here Maharaja Parikshit is addressing the cow, which is being tortured by the personality of Kali. So in this context, Maharaja Parikshit is emphasizing the role of a king or an executive head of the state as to what is his prime duty, what is his important duty towards the welfare of the citizens. So the first thing is, as a Kshatriya, like Prabhupada explains, Kshatriya by definition means, Kshat means hurt. So one who protects their citizens from being hurt is called a Kshatriya. So in other words, the first and foremost responsibility of a king or an executive head of a state is that he should give protection to the innocent citizens of his country or the state. Now here, interestingly, in the modern context, when we say praja or citizens, it only means human beings by default. We don't consider the other living beings into consideration. But Bhagavatam explains that praja refers to all living beings, including animals and other lower species. So if in this particular geography or a province, any species that is born is considered praja, and it becomes the responsibility of the king to extend his protection to all these beings, including that of lower species of life other than human beings. So this is something that the modern day laws makers are not aware of. And as we can see now in the state of Karnataka also, we are very shortly due for elections. So those who follow the news or read newspapers, so it is very evident that how different political parties are making different manifesto, they are making different promises saying that we will give you a better rule, so for your betterment, so please elect us. So, and if you observe all their promises, all their whatever manifesto they are releasing, it is only on the basis of sense gratification. So I'll give you this, I'll make it free, so or I will provide this at a cheaper price. So it's all based on sense gratification, and they are trying to appeal to different people based on religion, so caste politics. So the whole idea is to get power, so to come back to power. So why the politicians of the modern generation are so inclined to come back to power? So because that will give them a chance for gratifying their senses. So finally, if you see, the politicians want to rule for the sake of sense gratification. They want to appeal to the voters for sense gratification. The voters, the citizens, want to elect a certain representative for sense gratification. So in other words, everywhere it's a lose scenario. Now in the earlier days, like Bhagavatam explains, when Lord Ramachandra was ruling this planet, the rule was so perfect that at one point in time, when a particular Brahmana lost his son, even before he could die, that is in front of him he's lost his son, so the Brahmana came and questioned Lord Ramachandra that how can my son die before me? He's supposed to die only after I die. So how can he die before me? So that means there is something wrong in your ruling, because this is a law of nature. So if there is a discrepancy in the law of nature, so then that is attributed to the misconduct of the ruler of the state. And in fact, the Shastras explain that even the extremities of the weather, that is getting rains in an odd season, so or if it is too hot, too cold in an unexpected time, so all these are nothing but the results of the misrule of the executive head of the state or the king. So this Brahmana went and questioned Lord Ramachandra. There is something, problem with your rule. So that is how this kind of a calamity has happened. My son has died in front of me. So, and similarly, the citizens, it is not only that executive head was so perfect and he could deliver all his subjects and he could give protection to different living beings, even the citizens were very much obliged and indebted to the king. So in the same instance, it is also mentioned that there was one citizen of a state during Lord Ramachandra, that he would not even eat his food without having darshan of Lord Ram. So that is the kind of a respect that the citizens had towards their ruler. So finally, and when Lord Ram used to go away for many days touring his kingdom, he would completely fast. And at one point when Lord Ramachandra came back to his kingdom and he was informed that this is your devotee who is so strict about his vow of not taking the food without having this darshan, then Lord Ramachandra presents one deity to him and he says, this is as good as myself, and when I am away from the kingdom, you could have darshan of these deities and have your food. So this was the kind of a relationship that existed between the king and the subject during the olden days. So, but now it's a completely a different scenario altogether, and the whole thing is based on sense gratification, and therefore neither the citizens are having any faith or trust in the rule of the king or the executive head, and nor does the king or the executive head takes as his responsibility to give protection to the citizens. So this is the current scenario. So the conclusion is that in the time of Maharaj Parikshit, as it is mentioned in this verse, so Maharaj Parikshit chastised Kali because this was the first of its nature where one citizen was causing harm to another citizen. So that means the king was so powerful enough that he could subdue all the miscreants. Nobody ever dared to create suffering to other living entities. So this was the first of its accord. So and therefore Maharaj Parikshit has been expressing his surprise and inquiring from the cow that how this is happening. So and Prabhupada explains that even animals were given proper protection because the executive head was not whimsical or ignorant, but he was following the laws of God. In other words, all these kings were Raja Rishis. So they were Raja by execution of duty, but they were also Rishis. That's why they are called as Raja Rishis. That means they knew the principles of God. They knew the codes of God as per the religion. And so here Prabhupada also talks about how a man, he should subsist on varieties of grains, fruits and milk ordained by God, and there is no need of animal food save and except in particular cases. So he is explaining that, see, for certain species of life, the food is defined by God. Like Prabhupada gives an example, a tiger, so it has to subsist by eating the lower species of life. So, but for a human being, the meat is not the ordained food. So, and sometimes people argue with us that if your logic is based on that animals are having life and by killing them you are inflicting violence, pain on them, and therefore we are against meat eating. But then how do you justify your act of eating the food grains? That is also coming from plants, and it is proven that plants also have life. So then what is your logic? So the answer is that our thing is not based on whether it is animal or plant. It is based on the law or order of God. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. So in fact at one point Prabhupada says in a conversation with some of his devotees that yes, if Krishna orders to eat meat, we have no hesitation in eating meat. So it is the creator of this world has to define that. What is the rule for each of us to live? So the creator has decided for living beings, for human beings, the food is not the meat. So our point here is the order of God. So the order of God, we are eating plants, fruits and plant products and not the animals. So in this context, Srila Prabhupada also explains that how the modern day politicians are bringing a great infamy and a misfortune to themselves and to the state or the country they are ruling by allowing lot of slaughterhouses. As we all heard from Bhagavatam and other places in Shastras, in the earlier days, the process of meat eating also was a process. That means if somebody had a desire to eat meat, a certain process was recommended. He could not just go to a slaughterhouse and buy the meat from the house and eat. No, there was a prescribed process of he has to wait for a full moon day or a certain particular day, and then he has to take the animal and then he has to chant a mantra in the ears of the animal, which means that I am now slaughtering you for the taste of my taste buds, tongue, but in future you will get a chance to kill me also, mamsa. So that is the meaning of mamsa. So which is the other word for meat. So in other words, it was expected that when a person does this over a period of time, then at some point he gets some kind of a striking or a realization that, oh no, I should not be doing this because why am I risking my future life? And then he gives up meat eating over a period of time. So this was the prescribed process, but the slaughterhouses was never by design. A slaughterhouse cannot be there. And today there are so many automated slaughterhouses, and people advertise that you get fresh meat, and today with all this technology it gets delivered at your doorstep. So all this is going to bring a lot of misfortune, not only for the people who are indulging in that, but also to the executive head or the king who is allowing such heinous acts to be performed, because again, as we discussed, this is nothing but torturing the poor jivas, the animals, who are also the prajas, who are also having the right to live peacefully in the state. So based on this principle, the kings are supposed to give protection even to the animals. And in one place, in fact, Prabhupada says that is how Vaishnavas are always called as Paradukka Dukhi. So Paradukka Dukhi means when Vaishnavas see that others are suffering, that they also feel. So whatever we talk in today's context as empathy, so this is what is described in this principle as Paradukka Dukhi. And that is how Prahlad Maharaj also says in Bhagavatam, that unless I take all these miscreants, foolish people back to Godhead, I do not want to go back to Godhead myself alone. And that is what Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, Nacha tasman manusheshu kaschin me priyakrittamaha. So he says those who are preaching this gospel of God to the common men, so they are very dear to me. So much so that there cannot be any more dear in the past, nor could anyone be in the future. So in other words, Krishna emphatically declares that one who spreads this message of Krishna consciousness is the most favorite for him, because they are helping the poor souls who are caught in this cycle of birth and death come out of that. So that is why the Vaishnavas are termed as Paradukka Dukhi. And in this context, even Lord Rishabhadeva says that Gururna Sasyat. So that means one cannot become a guru unless he is confident of delivering his disciples. Similarly, one cannot become a king or the executive head unless he is guaranteed of providing the protection to his citizens. One should not become a father or a mother if he or she cannot give that protection to his or her children. So in other words, every role, be it of a guru or a king or a parent, has certain associated responsibilities. And the responsibility is they should liberate their dependents. So this is where the modern politicians lack this education, lack this understanding, and therefore both of us, it's like blind man leading the blind. So both of us are sure to go to the hell. And if you see, based on this principle of Rishabhadeva, we can see so many examples that how in the history we can see when Shukracharya, he advised Vamana not to give away everything to the Brahmana, who was none other than Lord Vishnu, who has come in the form of a Brahmana. So, and when Shukracharya informed Bali Maharaj that he is none other than Vishnu and you should not give away everything, so then what did Bali Maharaj do? He rejected Shukracharya, because Shukracharya's teaching was not based on the Shastra. So therefore, Gururna Sasyat, that principle of Rishabhadeva, that one should not become a guru, was violated. So therefore, Bali Maharaj rejects Shukracharya. Similarly, the wives of the Brahmanas during Krishna's time, so when they stopped their wives from going and meeting Krishna, so during the Rasa dance, they rejected their husbands. So this could be something not okay on a social context, but then understanding that from the Shastric point of view, that every jiva is nothing but part and parcel of God. So on that understanding, so it was perfectly fine. Similarly, we see that Bharata during Lord Ramachandra's time, so he rejected his mother, because his mother did all of what she did only because of the favor what she wanted to give to her son. She wanted to enthrone Bharat Maharaj in the place of Lord Ramachandra, and she asked Dasharatha to send Lord Ramachandra to the forest. So, but what did Bharata do? So he went, apologized to Lord Ramachandra, and he was anxiously, eagerly waiting for him to return. Until then, he kept Lord Ramachandra's padukas on the throne, and he did the ruling on Lord Ramachandra's behalf. So he also rejected his mother because it was based on the Shastra. So Prabhupada here is talking about that how this human form of life, it is meant to know the signs of God, and we cannot just waste this human form of life. So in fact, we all are having experience of people around us dying, people around us subjected to diseases, old age, but that is not striking us. And when we say this, like Prabhupada gives a beautiful example, there was once a person who was sitting on the branch of a tree and he was cutting that branch. So when the gentlemen, many people who were passing by that route, they warned this person who was sitting on the branch of a tree and cutting the same branch, hey, you will fall down, you will hurt yourself. So then this person didn't pay any heed to those advice, and eventually at one point he fell and hurt his back. So at that time this guy was feeling that all these gentlemen were so intelligent. So he goes to those gentlemen and he asks that, how did you know my future? So Prabhupada in this context he says that devotees of the Lord, they know that the future is Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi. So in other words, people today, if you see, they are so much anxious to know their future. What will happen to my son's education, his job, my daughter's marriage, or my so-and-so's health, or his elevation in the company. So whether he will go overseas or will he be settled here, whether they will have the children, my son. So like this, for all this they go to astrologers. So, but then what are they trying to know? That how my life of sense gratification would be, that's it. So, but those who are devotees of God, those who are intelligent, they are the best astrologers, because they already know the future of every one of us, yes or no? We all are going to get old, we all are going to have disease, we all are going to leave this body. And we all know that if we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, if we chant this Maha Mantra, then we will go back to Godhead. So this knowledge is given to us by Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. So in other words, for devotee, astrology doesn't make much sense, because he knows the future of this. And Krishna, that is how Krishna is telling Arjuna, so you please go and declare to the world that my devotee never perishes. So what more promise and what more assurance do we want more than this? So therefore we have to use this human form of life. And even by basic logic, like once Prabhupada told another example or a simple story, that how once a person wanted to serve the greatest person. That was his desire, that I should be in service of the greatest person. So all his life he was born and brought up in a village. So he knew that the village chief was the greatest of all beings. So he used to see that how his parents, his relatives, his other fellow village men, they used to go to the village chief, offer their respects and all that. So he thought that village chief is the greatest, and therefore my desire of being in company of the greatest would be achieved if I go and somehow get an opportunity to be in service of this village chief. So he went to the village chief and requested for an opportunity, and the village chief was very happy to admit him in his service, and life passed on. At one point, so there was a governor of that district visiting that village, and the village chief ordered the servant to make XYZ arrangements to receive the district governor. And when the district governor came, so the village chief offered his respects and surrendered, and all these discussions were happening. So at that time, it stuck upon this simple village person that, oh, my village chief is not the greatest. So the district governor is the greatest. So then he requested the village chief to introduce him to the governor, and he also expressed this desire to now be in service of the governor. So somehow by good fortune, he was now in the service of the district governor, and he thought, now I have achieved my life's purpose and ambition of serving the greatest person, until one such time when the district governor and of that particular province and many other district governors of many other provinces, they all had to come for a meeting called by the king of that particular state or the country, and there he could see, oh no, the king or the state of this country is the supreme. He is the greatest person, not this district governor, not the village chief. So, and then finally somehow again he makes it to the service of the king, and now he thought that yes, now I have achieved my life's desire. So, and now I have reached the pinnacle. Until one such time that the king, he left the assembly and he went in alone personally to seek the blessings of an ascetic or a sadhu in the forest. That means guru. So at that point, again, it struck this village person that, so no, the king is also not the supreme. He wants blessings, he wants direction from a sadhu, from a guru. So, and then when he goes and meets the guru, so the guru says, even I am not the supreme. The king, although may be taking directions from me, but I am dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So this is the role of a real guru. So, and how this village person, he was completely misguided in his pursuit of finding the greatest person. So similarly, in all our lives, we want to have the life of happiness, we want to have the life of eternity, we want to have the life of joy. So we do not want sorrow, we do not want death, so we do not want any of these relationships to be broken. So, but the material world is not like that. Material world is dukkhalayam ashashvatam. And it is explained that any relationship, whatever the relationship you term it, define it, it has to end. There is nothing called permanent relationship in this world. So the only permanent relationship is between the devotees, the jivas, and the Supreme Lord Sri Hari. So this is how the Guru connects us to Sri Hari when we come in contact with him. And this is what Srila Prabhupada has done for all of us. And he gave us this knowledge that when we come in contact with God by chanting the Maha Mantra, by reading the scriptures, by having darshan of the deities, then we are coming in contact with Satchitananda. And this is the way to rejuvenate our real eternal life. And unless we do this, we will never be able to experience the happiness. So in fact, we all want to be happy, samadhi. So today many Mayavadis, many different bogus spiritual institutions talk about being in trance. So they talk about how by not talking, by not engaging in any other activities, by being mauna, or you can experience that state of samadhi. And in fact, people in the olden days and even now, and rather now it is becoming more and more popular, because today we are in a kind of a rat race. So busy, we are bombarded with so many messages and information on the social media. So with so many ways of people always around us. So we have forgotten to be with ourselves. So that's how some organizations, they say samadhi. Samadhi means where you get disconnected with the outside world, disconnected with the social media, disconnected with the internet, and be with yourself so that you experience Paramatma within you. So that is their proposal for samadhi. And why they are proposing this samadhi? So that you experience the happiness. But Shastra says samadhi is never possible to be experienced for persons who are interested in material enjoyment. So as long as we are interested in sense gratification, so that maybe the 10 days you will not talk, those 10 days or 5 days you will not use your mobile phone. But after you come out of that, what will you do? Probably the whole day we will be glued to our phone and replying to all the backlog of messages, mails. So that is not serving the purpose. It is exactly like the elephant taking the bath. It is called Hasti Snana. So when the elephant goes and takes bath, so after it comes back to the shore, it again takes mud and sprinkles all over its body. So the whole purpose of bathing is defeated. So in other words, as long as the desire for enjoying independent of Krishna is alive within us, this temporary relief of taking to XYZ processes will not help. It is only a temporary phase. After we come out of that, we again go back into the sense of sense gratification. So therefore, if one has to experience the peace, the shanti, the happiness, just like in Chaitanya Charitamrita there is a verse, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ateva Shanta Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakali Ashanta. So as long as we are desiring either bhukti, the material enjoyment, or mukti, or even liberation, or jnana, or siddhi, any of the material perfection, we will always remain ashanta. We will always be on the hovering platform of not having peace and happiness. But Krishna Bhakta, he is described as shanta in the literatures, peaceful, because is nishkama. Nishkama means not having material desires. Sometimes nishkama is translated by Mayavadis as not having any desires. But Prabhupada explains that not having material desires is possible only for a stone. So otherwise, human beings means we will have some desire, right? So if that desire is directed towards Krishna, then that is called nishkama. If as long as we don't desire anything for ourselves, the devotees are called as nishkama. And in fact, once Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains a philosophical point that how when an elephant, it is propelled by the desire of lust, mating with opposite sex, but the same elephant, when it goes and stands in the waters of Ganges, then all that lust thing will be relinquished, it will vanquish. So similarly, the jivas, when we are propelled by the different anarthas like kama, krodha, mada, matsarya, so but when we come to the shelter of the Ganges water of the devotional service of God, then we can be relieved from all these weeds of devotional service. So therefore we have to take this opportunity and see the nature around us and realize that this is not meant for us. Like once also in another occasion, Prabhupada was giving this example that how animals and human beings are two different bodies. Like animals, if you have seen in some slaughterhouses, goat or any other animal for that matter, if it is being taken to slaughterhouse, so and many other animals are queued in the thing, waiting for their turn to be slaughtered, and each of these animals will see that the animal in front of me is being slaughtered, but they will never rebel or try to run away because they are allured by the green grass around provided by the owner of the slaughterhouse. So they will never realize that next turn is mine. So similarly, now what is the difference between man and human being? Similarly, human beings are also seeing that our great grandfather is not there anymore. So our ancestors are not there anymore. So now that cue should propel us that okay, at one point in time that I will also not be there anymore. So then that means something more I should do, more than what the other living beings are doing. So there is an example given that why is the CEO of a company paid more than a peon? Why? Because the nature of duties that he has to discharge is of a higher accord. So the nature of work that he has to do is intelligent. So therefore a CEO is paid lakhs of rupees while a peon is just paid merely a few thousand rupees because his duty is just to open and close the door, get the water. So similarly, why is a human being given a higher facility of thinking? We are having this faculty of thinking. That is why, Shastras tell that, this is the only human species. It's like a junction where we can make a conscious decision of not gliding back to animal species, but then escape from the cycle of birth and death. So, therefore, human beings have been given this extra facility called as intelligence. So, we should use this intelligence to see the things and situations around us. We should not become like the animal who is not realizing that the animal in front of me will be slaughtered soon. So, in fact, Prabhupada gives a short story also on this. He says, there was once a hunter who had laid a net, and some of the birds were all there, and the parent birds had gone out to search for food for its children, and when they came back, the mother and father bird, they realized that their children were all caught in the trap of the hunter. So the mother, out of affection, could not really use its discretion or logic that even if I go, I will not be able to free my children, but rather I will get caught. So it didn't use its intelligence, rather it rushed towards the net to free its children, and that also got caught in the net. So, but the father bird, the husband bird realized, now first my children were trapped, now my wife, out of her emotion to her children, she also went and got trapped. Now at least let me run away and escape from this trap. So Prabhupada says, laughingly to his disciples, that is how our devotees have taken sannyas from this material world, because they saw that people all around us have been trapped, and let me at least escape. So in other words, this is the beauty of our good fortune that we have come in the contact of a guru like Srila Prabhupada, who can help us realize that this material world is only a place of suffering, and by engaging in devotional service, and the most practical form of devotional service is by chanting regularly Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. By chanting regularly, this kind of finer intellect, the brain tissues will get developed, and we will get the understanding that this form of life we will have to utilize to go back to home, back to Godhead. So we will end here. Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Thai Gaur Premanand.